She didn't notice the seagulls circling overhead. Not at first. All she felt was the cold morning wind brushing across her cheek as she leaned against the railing at the pier. The sky was pale, washed in the soft gray of early dawn, and the water below shifted like restless memory. She had come here the same way every morning for the past 9 months. The ocean gave her something the world rarely did anymore: silence without expectation. Riley Cross inhaled slowly, counting the breath as it filled her lungs. 1, 2, 3, hold. Her chest rose and paused before she released the air in one long, steady exhale. The same way she had been trained. The same way she kept herself from fracturing. People walked past her without stopping. Fishermen organizing nets, joggers with earbuds, a woman walking her dog. To them, Riley was just another quiet face in the crowd. A woman in a plain gray sweatshirt and dark jeans, hair tied loosely, eyes set somewhere distant. No special story. No visible scars. They didn't know what her hands could do. They didn't know what her body had endured. They didn't know what she remembered every night in her sleep. And she preferred it that way. She turned from the railing and began the slow walk back toward the road. The grocery bag in her hand rustled softly, the oranges inside shifting with each step. She had a routine. Routines kept the mind from wandering to the places it shouldn't go. Wake, breathe, walk, breakfast, work, silence, sleep, repeat. It was a cycle she had built carefully, each piece placed to keep her sanity balanced. The old seal emblem on her keychain tapped against her thigh as she walked. A small metal insignia, faded and worn from years of handling. She never looked at it directly. It was there, but she didn't acknowledge it, like the memories, like the guilt. A car horn jolted her slightly as she crossed the street. The reaction was small, barely perceptible, but inside her pulse spiked. She looked both ways again, even though she already knew the street was clear. Hypervigilance was the one thing she hadn't been able to let go of. She turned into her apartment complex, a quiet 3-story place with chipped paint and humming hallway lights. She climbed the stairs to her second-floor unit, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The interior was neat, almost painfully so. Everything folded, everything aligned. Disarray made her palms sweat. She set the groceries down and froze. The window above her kitchen sink was open, just a crack. She stared at it. Had she opened it this morning? Or? Her breath steadied itself before she even realized she was breathing differently. She scanned the apartment visually: corners, shadows, floor, entry points. No sign of disturbance. No foot tracks. No shifted air currents. The lock on the door had no scratch marks. Probably nothing. Probably. She stepped forward and closed the window. Her hands were steady, but her throat felt tight. She wasn't in danger. But her body didn't believe that. After a moment, she leaned against the counter, closed her eyes, and breathed again. Slow, measured, controlled. The same breathing that had kept her conscious during cold water blackout training. The same breathing that had kept her alive in moments where panic meant death. She had practiced it thousands of times in the ocean, underwater, surrounded by darkness and pressure and silence. It was strange how something that once protected her could also haunt her. The kettle whistled softly on the stove. She poured hot water into a chipped mug and sat at her small kitchen table. Her apartment was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that reminded you of conversations you could no longer have. There had been 4 of them in her unit. Now there was just her. She didn't let her mind go further than that. But sometimes, when she wasn't careful, she heard their voices anyway. Half-laughed jokes, orders given with conviction, promises whispered during long stretches of waiting. The kind of promises soldiers make in silence, believing they'll never have to break them. She sipped her tea, hands wrapped around the warm ceramic like it was the only thing keeping her tethered. Someone knocked at her door. She didn't move at first. Most people didn't come here. Most people didn't know she lived here. Packages were left at the front office. Her contacts communicated only by message. Her past stayed in the past. The knock came again, light, uncertain. She stood. Her footsteps were soundless on the wooden floor as she approached the door. She didn't peek through the peephole. The angle could give away her eye placement. Instead, she positioned slightly to the left, where a strike would miss her if someone forced entry. Then she opened the door. A teenager stood there. The same boy from that night in the alley 9 months ago, Leo. He was older now, or maybe it was just that his eyes held less fear than they used to. He lifted a small notebook awkwardly. "Hey, Miss Riley, I didn't know if you'd be home." Her expression softened, the kind of soft that felt unfamiliar on her face. "Hi, Leo," she said, voice steady, quiet. He shifted on his feet. I wanted to show you something." He flipped open the notebook, revealing pages of sketches, some rough, some detailed. And there, on the third page, was an image that stopped her breath. It was her. Not in the alley, not fighting, not bruised. Just standing. Calm. Strong. Breathing. She didn't know what to say. Leo looked down quickly. "I know you probably don't want to remember that night, but he stopped, swallowed. "You saved my life, and I've been trying to get better since then. Drawing helps." She felt something move inside her chest, something she had kept locked away. Connection. No one had looked at her without fear or expectation in years. She stepped aside. "Come in." Leo blinked, surprised. "Really?" "Yes." He stepped in quietly, looking around like the space was a museum. Riley sat across from him. Silence settled, but it wasn't heavy, just real. He spoke first. "Do you miss them?" She didn't ask who he meant. He knew. He remembered the emblem. He remembered the officers. He had seen the look in her eyes that night, the look of someone who had lost more than blood. Riley didn't answer quickly. She let the question sit. "Yes," she said finally, "every day." Leo nodded, not out of pity but recognition. His sister, the alley, fear that left marks no one could see. "They would be proud you're still here," he said. Her jaw tightened, not in anger but in something closer to grief. She didn't cry, but she wanted to. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. Leo closed his notebook and stood. "I just wanted to show you that and say thank you again." He hesitated. "If you ever need anything, I live in the same spot, apartment 2C. Riley nodded. "Thank you, Leo." He smiled, a small, honest smile, the kind people forget how to make when life hurts too much. After he left, the apartment felt different, not full, but not hollow either. She sat back down. Her tea had gone lukewarm. She lifted it and took another small sip. And that was when her phone buzzed on the table. She stared at the screen. Unknown number. No name, no emoji, just a short message. "Riley, we need to talk." Her pulse echoed in her ears. She didn't move at first. Then slowly she breathed in. 1, 2, 3, hold. Exhale. She typed back. "Where?" Another pause. Then, "Pier midnight." She closed her eyes and listened to the faint sound of the city outside. Something was coming. Something she thought she had left behind. And she wasn't sure if she was ready. But she would go. She always did. Because survival wasn't just staying alive. It was learning to breathe through what tried to drown you. Part 2 will begin immediately upon your message. Just say continue. ChatGPT said. "Perfect. Before I start, can you please confirm which emotional tone you want Riley to begin with? Choose one of the following. It shapes her mindset, packing, and emotional tone for the full 8-part story. A quiet isolation. She's withdrawn, guilt-ridden, and emotionally detached from the world. Be trying to move forward. She's living a quiet civilian life, managing her trauma, but the reflexes and memories never left. See, broken but hopeful, she's aware of her pain, but is searching for purpose or peace again. Once you confirm A, B, or C, I'll immediately begin part 1, 1500 plus words. Cinematic, emotionally immersive, and written for a voiceover delivery. Why was she always the one who noticed the shadows first? Riley paused at the crosswalk, her hands tucked into the pockets of her faded blue hoodie, the ocean wind carrying a faint scent of salt and diesel from the harbor. People moved around her, laughing, scrolling phones, arguing about dinner plans. To them, it was just another coastal evening. But Riley's eyes tracked every reflection in every storefront window, every angle of approach, every hand in every pocket near her. Old habits didn't die, they waited. Her breathing remained steady, slow, practiced. Inhale 4 seconds, hold, exhale 6. Control. She had learned it in drowning drills, where panic meant water filling the lungs, where silence and stillness were the only way to survive. That training stayed with her long after the uniform was folded into a drawer and buried under civilian clothes that never quite fit her life. She didn't look like someone who had served. She preferred it that way. Jeans, hoodie, no patches, no boots, nothing that said Navy SEAL or Special Operations or survived things no one should have to survive. She wasn't hiding from the world, just stepping around it. Her therapist once called it functional dissociation. Riley called it breathing. The crosswalk light shifted. She moved with the crowd, another face in the dim glow of street lamps and warm restaurant signs. A couple laughed behind her. Someone dragged a suitcase across uneven pavement. A skateboard rattled past. Normal sounds, normal life. Her fingers brushed the small metal emblem in her pocket, the seal trident pin. Old, scratched, worn smooth in some places. She didn't carry it for pride. She carried it because she still didn't know what to do with the questions it left behind. The grocery store was nearly empty. She bought only what she needed: bread, rice, green tea, a small jar of honey, everything organized, precise, almost ritual. Routine kept the memories quiet. As she stepped outside, the city had grown darker, the laughter had thinned, the wind changed direction, and that was the first sign she noticed. The air grew heavier, the alley lights flickered. She turned down a side street, quieter, faster, a shortcut home she'd taken 100 times. She didn't feel fear, just awareness. The shift in atmosphere was subtle, but her pulse recognized it before her mind did. Something was wrong. Not loud, not obvious. A presence, pressure in the air. Someone watching. Someone waiting. She didn't stop walking, didn't turn around, didn't look. That would only confirm awareness. Instead, she adjusted her breathing, lowering her shoulders to make her body appear relaxed. Keep the threat curious, not reactive. Her footsteps remained slow. But their footsteps were quicker. 3 of them, their pace matched hers a little too closely. She heard their whispers, not the words, just the tone. Men who thought they had control of the situation. Men who assumed weakness. She could have crossed the street, could have gone to a crowded store, could have spoken, asked for help. She didn't. Not because she wanted this, but because running made them predators, standing made them uncertain. Still, uncertainty didn't last long when hunger was involved. The alley narrowed. Her shadow stretched across damp concrete walls. A loose sign clattered in the wind. Neon lights flickered on the wet pavement like broken constellations. She could feel them closing in. Her steps slowed, not in fear but in preparation. Then a voice behind her. "Hey, blue hoodie, stop." Not a request, a claim. She did stop slowly, her head half-turned, showing just enough of her profile to seem compliant. The tallest stepped forward. He was young, no older than 25, but his eyes were already tired in the way of people who had seen disappointment too many times. A scar cut across his cheek. "Wallet and phone," he said. His tone said he expected her to crumble. Her voice was steady, soft. "I don't want trouble." One of them snorted, "Then don't make any." Her heart didn't race. There was no adrenaline spike, just the cold clarity of assessment. Exits 2. Weapons, none visible but one likely concealed, hip or ankle. Their posture untrained, aggressive but sloppy. Intent, force, not conversation. She didn't reach for her wallet immediately, because hesitation gave them time to show their real threat. And they did. A hand shot out too fast, too forceful, grabbing her wrist and twisting. Pain shot up her arm, but she let her body move with the momentum. Resistance would have escalated too early. They needed to believe they had control. Then the third man stepped forward, eyes dark with something ugly. Before she could speak, his hand closed on her throat. It was violent, uncoordinated, the kind of choke born from desperation, not training. Her vision flickered, the grip tightened. Her body reacted, but not the way anyone expected. She didn't struggle. She didn't claw. She didn't gasp. She relaxed. Her heartbeat slowed. Her lungs expanded in one deep, controlled breath, and then she held it. Just like underwater. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 if necessary. The man squeezing her throat waited for fear, waited for panic. Instead, Riley looked him directly in the eyes. And didn't blink. Something in him faltered. Confusion replaced dominance. Fear replaced bravado. Her mind moved first. Drop weight. Rotate shoulder. Trap the wrist. Exploit momentum. Her body followed, fluid, efficient, practiced. She dropped her center of gravity, twisting like water slipping through fingers, and suddenly his balance was gone. One elbow strike, sharp and angled, hit his ribs with surgical precision. He collapsed, choking on his own breath. The second man lunged. She moved before thinking, breath still held. A palm strike to the throat, not lethal but disabling, followed by a sweep of his legs. He hit the ground, clutching his neck, gasping. The tallest one swung, wild, desperate. She ducked, pivoted, and drove her knee into his abdomen. His breath escaped in a broken groan. But then she felt something behind her, a shift of air, a presence. A fourth man. She hadn't seen him. He looped a rope over her neck and pulled. Hard. Her feet left the ground. Vision shook. The rope dug into skin. The world narrowed to pressure and pulse, and darkness creeping at the edges of her sight. He expected panic. She gave him stillness. She closed her eyes, slowed her heartbeat, focused only on the sound of blood in her ears. Her mind went back to the drowning pool, the instructors pushing her under, the darkness, the silence. Relax or die. Her breath was locked inside her lungs, preserved, not wasted. The man pulling the rope screamed in frustration, his voice cracking. Why won't you go down? Because she had gone down before. And she had come back. Her body moved, fast, decisive. She twisted her torso, using the rope's angle to throw him off balance. He stumbled. She seized the opening. Using the rope itself, she redirected force, rolled him hard onto the pavement and pinned him beneath her knee. No wasted movement, no excess violence. Just survival. The others stared, terrified. "What are you?" one gasped. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Retired." They froze. From what? She didn't want to answer. But the truth fell out anyway. Navy SEAL. Their faces drained of color. Silence settled over the alley. Their courage had evaporated. They scrambled to their feet, limping away as fast as they could. The last one, the rope carrier, backed away on his hands, eyes wide and wet. "You're a monster." Riley wiped the rope burn on her neck, breath still slow, steady. "No," she said quietly, "but I was trained by them." The street went still. Only then did her adrenaline drop. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory. She pressed her palm to the cold brick wall and let one long breath out. Slow, controlled, survival wrapped in silence. Then a voice, small, wavering, came from behind a dumpster. Are you okay?" A teenage boy stepped into the dim light, his eyes wide and glassy. He had seen everything. She expected fear, avoidance. Instead, his expression was awe. "You didn't run," he whispered. "You didn't even look scared." Riley swallowed. "Fear is allowed," she said softly. "Panic is." He stepped closer. His hands shook, not from terror, something else, recognition. "My sister, she was attacked once," he said. "No one helped her." Riley's chest tightened. She didn't ask what happened. Some pain doesn't need words. "You helped me just now," he continued. "I was walking behind you, they saw me too." Riley's breath caught, sharp and unexpected. She hadn't saved herself. She had saved him. He noticed the small metal object on the ground and picked it up, holding it out with both hands. A worn seal trident. "You dropped this," he said. She stared at it a long time before taking it back. Her fingers closed around it like a promise and a wound. "Maybe," the boy whispered. "This means you're supposed to help people again." Riley's throat tightened. She knelt. "What's your name?" "Leo." "Thank you, Leo," she whispered, "for reminding me I'm still here." Police sirens began to rise in the distance. People had finally noticed the violence. Leo looked up at her. "You're like a superhero." "No," she replied, "just someone who learned how to breathe." "What do you do when the world believes the danger is over, but your body is still fighting it?" Riley sat on the edge of the ambulance bumper, a blanket draped lightly around her shoulders though she wasn't cold. The paramedic kept asking whether she wanted to go to the hospital, if she felt lightheaded, if she needed oxygen. She shook her head each time. Her breathing was steady. It always was, once the moment passed. The police had already taken statements from the boy, Leo, and were guiding him toward a car to take him home. He kept glancing back. Riley lifted a hand just enough to reassure him. His shoulders relaxed. The officers had accepted her explanation easily, partly because of how calm she seemed, partly because the injured attackers were conscious enough to confirm they had been the aggressors, and partly because the one who had asked her if she was military hadn't needed her answer to know the truth. Experience recognizes experience. But now the alley was quiet, the sirens faded, the adrenaline dissolved. And the shaking began. Not exaggerated, not visible to most. Just the tremor under the skin, the body remembering violence even when the mind tried to forget it. She folded the blanket tighter, closing her eyes. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. A shadow shifted beside her. "You good?" She didn't need to open her eyes to know who it was, the officer who had recognized her. He was older. Dark stubble covered his jaw. A tiredness sat in his eyes that didn't come from this job alone. Riley had seen the same expression in mirrors after deployments. "I'm fine," she said quietly. He exhaled through his nose, disbelief but not challenge. "That choke, you didn't panic." "Panic wastes air." He nodded slowly like the words were familiar. "You SEALs, different breed." She didn't correct the phrasing. There were no female Navy SEALs officially. The pipeline wasn't open back when she joined, but there were workarounds, storylines, units that didn't exist, projects that didn't have names. Officially, she was never where she had been. Unofficially, she had scars no paperwork could remove. "Listen," the officer said gently, leaning against the ambulance next to her. "I've seen a lot of veterans get swallowed alive by this place. This city doesn't slow down for anyone. If you need help, resources, whatever, don't disappear like they did." She opened her eyes at that. Disappear. His jaw tightened. We lose more here after they come home than we ever did overseas. Her breath stilled. He knew. He didn't know her story, her background, her deployments, but he knew the silence she lived inside, the one that followed people back from war like smoke clinging to clothes. She nodded once. It was not agreement, just acknowledgement. He tapped her arm lightly, then stepped away. Riley stood. The blanket slipped from her shoulders. She didn't pick it up. Her walk home was slow, not because she was tired, but because something inside her had shifted. Leo's words echoed. Maybe this means you're supposed to help people again. She didn't know whether that was hope or a wound. Her apartment door was locked by reflex. She had reinforced the frame herself when she moved in. Inside, everything was neat, minimal, deliberate. She placed the grocery bag on the counter and sat down at the small wooden table illuminated by a single warm lamp. Then she pulled the sealed trident from her pocket. Worn edges, faint scratches, a hint of rust where seawater had once worked through the grooves. She didn't look at it. She stared at the wall instead. Year-old paint, uneven near the corner where she had once thrown a glass during a nightmare. She should have cried, but her eyes were dry. She wasn't numb, just practiced. Her phone buzzed, not loudly, just once. She didn't look at it at first. Messages rarely brought anything good, but after a moment she reached for it. A name she hadn't seen in years. Commander Hale. Her breath caught. The message was short. Heard about what happened. You handled it clean. We could use someone like you again. Riley closed her eyes. The walls felt smaller. She typed back. I left for a reason. The reply came almost immediately. And that reason brought you to choke 3 men unconscious in a back alley rather than let a kid get dragged into the dark. The instincts never left. Neither did your purpose. Her chest tightened. Pressure, memory, cold water screams under the surface. She exhaled slow. Another message. You don't have to come back to war. We're training new recruits. They're green, soft. They need to know how to survive, how to breathe, how not to break. Riley stared at the phone until her eyes blurred. Not crying. Just remembering. She typed nothing. She set the phone face down on the table. And then she slept. Not deeply, not peacefully. Dreams came in fragments. Black water, flashlights, frosted oxygen masks, shivering bodies, a hand gripping hers underwater, a heartbeat slowing, a voice she never heard again after that night. She woke before dawn. Her breath was steady. Her pillow was damp. The city was quiet, the only time it ever seemed honest. She made tea, no sugar, just heat and calm. Then she changed into running clothes and stepped outside. The ocean waited. So did the cold. The shoreline was nearly empty. A few fishermen, a lone dog walker. The waves rolled in rhythm, endless and low. Riley jogged the length of the pier before stretching by the guardrail. Her body moved automatically, muscles recalling movement patterns like language. But she didn't stop there. She walked to the edge of the shore, removed her shoes, rolled up her pants, and stepped into the water. It was cold, sharp enough to pull breath from lungs. But Riley inhaled deeply and let the shock settle. Cold reminded her she was alive. She waded deeper. Knee height, waist height. Just. The ocean wrapped her in its bitter embrace. And then, she slipped beneath the surface. The world fell silent. No wind, no sirens, no footsteps, no voices. Just water. Just breath held in stillness. Just memory. She stayed under until her chest tightened just slightly, just enough to feel, not enough to need. When she emerged, the sun had begun to rise. Gold bled into the horizon, light touching the water like forgiveness. She blinked it away. Footsteps approached along the sand, not hurried, not cautious. Someone standing just near her shoulder. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Leo. He rubbed his arms against the cold air, hoodie hanging loosely, sleep still in his eyes. "You're up early," Riley said quietly, staring at the horizon. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted. She nodded. "I kept thinking about yesterday," he said. "I thought I would feel scared, but I don't. I feel stronger." Riley exhaled a long breath, letting her gaze follow the rolling waves. "That's how it starts," she murmured. He frowned. "How what starts?" She turned to look at him. He didn't flinch from her eyes. That surprised her. "Learning how to breathe through fear," she said. "Once you know how, you never forget." He thought about that. The ocean wind blew his hair into his eyes. He didn't brush it away. "Can you teach me?" he asked finally. Not fearful. Not weak. Just the quiet, steady tone of someone who wanted to stop being hunted by the world. Riley felt something shift inside her chest. Something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not loud. Not heroic. Just real. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Commander Hale. She didn't answer it. Not yet. Instead, she faced the water, inhaled slow, deep, deliberate, and spoke softly. "Okay, Leo, first lesson." He straightened, attentive. Riley placed her hand lightly over her heart. "Fear is just the body trying to save you. Don't fight it. Don't ignore it. Just slow it down." Leo mirrored her, palm to chest. "Breathe in through the nose, slow. Let your ribs expand." They inhaled together. "Hold, count to 3. They did. "Now exhale, longer than you inhaled." Their breaths left them like fog in the morning air. Leo's shoulders relaxed. Riley's heartbeat steadied. The sun lifted a little higher over the water, painting everything in gold. Leo looked up. "Does this mean you're coming back to whatever you used to be?" Riley didn't answer right away. She looked at the horizon where sky met sea, endless and open. "No," she whispered, "not what I used to be." Her hand closed around the sealed trident in her pocket. "But maybe what I'm meant to be next." What do you do when the world starts asking you to return to the person you once were? Riley dried her hair with the small towel she always kept in her gym bag. The ocean water still clung to her skin, salt tight against her shoulders. Leo stood beside her, breathing in slow, steady counts the way she had shown him. He was young, old enough to see the darkness in the world, young enough to still believe it could be fought. His breathing had steadied faster than she expected. Some people collapse under pressure. Some people reshape inside it. Riley had learned to see the difference. "Does it always feel like this?" Leo asked quietly. "When you're calm on the outside, but inside, everything is still moving." Riley tightened the towel around her neck. "It never stops moving," she replied. "You just stop letting it decide who you are." Leo looked at her then the way soldiers sometimes looked at instructors on their first day. Not with admiration, not even with respect. With hunger. The hunger to not be powerless ever again. She had seen that same expression in a mirror once, a long time ago. She handed him the towel. "Go home, eat, rest. We'll meet again tomorrow, same time." He nodded and stepped away, but then he paused and turned back. "Thank you, I mean it." Riley gave him the smallest smile. It felt unfamiliar on her face. "Go," she murmured. When he left, the morning felt heavier, or maybe it was the silence. She walked the shoreline until she reached the stairs leading to the street above. Her apartment was only a few blocks away. She expected routine, tea, quiet, maybe sleep if she was lucky. But life rarely waited for sleep. Her phone vibrated again. She looked down. Commander Hale. Riley didn't answer. Not yet. She turned the phone over in her palm and began walking. She passed coffee shops opening their doors, past early joggers stretching, past fishermen hauling coolers to the pier. Life was moving, unaware that hers was shifting in ways she didn't have words for. At her building, she paused at the bottom step, not because she was hesitant, but because she was thinking. The air smelled of salt and damp concrete. The morning sun hit the windows in fractured patches. A memory rose, not violent, not painful, just heavy. Her last day in uniform. Hale standing in front of her, hands clasped behind his back. "You don't have to prove anything to anybody," he'd said. She had stared at the floor. His voice had softened. "You did everything we asked of you, more than you should have. You have nothing left to earn." But she had never believed that. Not then. Not now. The guilt had stayed even when the war ended. The lost faces, the silent water, the people she couldn't save. She exhaled. Not out of pain. Out of memory. Her phone buzzed again. This time a different message. "I'm outside your building." She stiffened instinctively, scanning her surroundings. No threat, no trap, just presence. She turned. Commander Hale stood across the street, leaning against a street lamp like he'd been waiting for her. He looked older, more gray in the hair, a deeper heaviness behind the eyes. Leadership ages people faster than time ever could. Riley crossed the street with slow, calm steps. "You could have called," she said. "I did," he replied. She couldn't argue with that. They stood in silence for a moment. The city moved around them, without noticing either one of them. "Walk with me," Hale asked. Riley hesitated, then nodded. They walked along the boardwalk, neither speaking, the ocean rolling gently beneath them. Finally, Hale exhaled through his nose. "That alley incident is circulating," he said calmly. "Not the public version, the internal one, the one that pays attention to the details." Riley didn't respond. "They're asking if you're still capable," he continued. "If the instincts are still sharp, if the discipline is still there." Riley stopped walking. "Are they evaluating me," she asked quietly, "or hunting me?" Hale met her gaze. "Neither," he answered. "But the world is shifting again. Things are moving. We need people who don't break when everything is burning." Riley looked out at the ocean. "And you think I haven't broken?" "No," Hale replied. "I think you bent. There's a difference." His voice held no flattery, just truth. Riley breathed slowly. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Hale shook his head. "Not what I want, what I'm offering." He paused. "A training position, civilian contractors, off-grid. You teach recruits how to survive what you survived, how to think, how to breathe, how to stay alive when everything goes black." Riley's pulse tightened in her throat. He continued. "You don't have to go back into the field. You don't have to wear a uniform. You don't have to revisit the wars. Just teach them how to live." Riley stared at the water. Teach them how to live. She remembered the face of the one she couldn't save underwater, his hand slipping from hers in the dark, the silence that followed. She had taught him how to fight, but not how to survive. She closed her eyes. "I don't know if I can do that," she whispered. Hale turned to face her fully. "I know." His voice wasn't hard, it was gentle, too gentle, the kind of gentle that hurts. "But I also know you're already doing it." He didn't say Leo's name. He didn't have to. Riley flinched. Her silence was enough of an answer. Hale stepped back. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "Just don't run from the choice." He walked away without waiting for her response. Riley stood alone on the boardwalk, listening to the waves. She didn't move for a long time. When she finally returned to her apartment, the air felt different, heavy, expectant. She didn't sit, didn't think, didn't try to talk herself out of anything. She simply opened the drawer where the trident had been kept all these years. She placed it gently inside. Not buried, not hidden, just acknowledged. She closed the drawer. Then she sat on the floor, her back against the wall, knees drawn close, not tight, just resting. She breathed slowly. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant call of seabirds outside. Her voice came out in a whisper. I don't know who I am without the mission. Saying it aloud didn't break her. It steadied her. Because the truth wasn't that she couldn't live without war. The truth was that she didn't know how to live without purpose. And purpose had just knocked on her door. But purpose wasn't the only thing waiting. Her phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown sender. No name. Just 3 words. We found you. Riley froze. The stillness was absolute. She didn't panic. She didn't breathe faster. She just listened to the silence. Slowly she stood. Walked to the window. Looked down at the street. Nothing unusual. Nothing threatening. Just normal life. But her instincts didn't lie. The past she thought she had outrun had been moving toward her the entire time. Her voice was quiet, controlled. The training never left. The ocean outside rolled, endless and calm. Riley exhaled. Long, steady, unbroken. She whispered to herself. Then let them come. Why did the message feel familiar? Not the number, not the words, the rhythm, the weight behind them. We found you. It wasn't a threat. It was recognition, a statement of presence. Someone who knew exactly who she used to be. Someone who knew what it meant to wait, watch, and strike only when the breathing slowed and the world went still. Riley locked her phone screen and set it gently on the table. No rush. No panic. Panic gets people killed. She walked to the sink and washed her hands slowly, letting water run down her wrists and pool into the basin. The water didn't sway her. It used to. Water was memory, but now it was just sound. Her heart stayed steady. There were only a few groups who could have sent that message. Criminal syndicates she had disrupted overseas, covert cells her unit dismantled, or military intelligence coming not with a request but a pull back into the shadows. Or it could be personal. She dried her hands on a cloth and sat down at the table. Her apartment felt smaller now, not unsafe, just smaller. Like the past had rearranged the walls and floorboards while she slept. Her phone buzzed again. A second message. We know what happened on Isla Grey. Riley inhaled sharply. That name did more than stir memory. It pulled her under. Her mind went somewhere it never spoke aloud. Black water at night. Storm winds cutting like knives. A sinking boat. Hands slipping in the dark. Isla Grey was the mission that ended her military life. The mission that broke the part of her that still thought survival was about strength alone. She had saved 3. She had lost 1. And the world had pretended it never happened. She closed her eyes, felt the memory rise like cold tide, but she did not drown in it. Not anymore. Her phone buzzed again. Meet at Pier 9, 5 a.m. Come alone. She looked at the clock. 4:11 a.m. She didn't rush. She changed clothes slowly. Black fleece, neutral cap, shoes worn soft enough not to make sound, not because she feared them, but because muscle memory guided her without effort. She stepped outside. The city was still asleep. Streetlights flickered in the damp early air. The ocean sounded louder at night, waves slapping the wooden supports of the pier like a heartbeat. She approached Pier 9 with quiet steps, eyes scanning every shadow, every reflection in the water. Awareness, not suspicion. She knew how to be hunted, and she knew how to walk into traps without dying in them. A figure stood at the very end of the pier. Not tall, not broad, shoulders narrow, back straight, hood pulled up but posture unmistakable. Riley slowed. Not in fear. In recognition. The figure turned. A woman. Dark hair cut short, sharp jawline, eyes like weathered amber steady, unblinking. Riley froze. Her voice surfaced from memory before her mind could form it. Mara. Mara didn't smile. She didn't move closer. She just existed there, unwavering like the ocean itself. "Hello, Riley," she said softly. Riley took in the sight of her, piece by piece. Last time she had seen Mara was under black water, oxygen fatting, rope tangled, emergency flares lighting the ocean like a battlefield. Mara had been there. Mara had survived. And then Mara was gone. No debriefing. No message. No goodbye. Just gone. Riley's voice was low, controlled, but the tremor beneath it was real. "I thought you died." Mara's eyes softened, but only for a breath. "No," she replied, "but they let you believe I did." Riley's pulse flickered once. "Why?" she asked. Mara stepped closer, boots echoing dully on wet wood. "Because they needed you to blame yourself," she said. "To break you, to end your usefulness." Riley's breath caught. It was not shock. It was confirmation. There had always been something wrong with the official report, something missing, something silent. Riley stared at Mara. The ocean breeze tugged at both of their sleeves, carrying salt and memory between them. "I searched for you," Riley whispered. "I know," Mara said. "You didn't answer." "I couldn't." Riley looked down at her hands, steady, but the quiet ache had weight. Mara continued. "They moved me into black assignments, deep extraction. No names, no records, no returns. I thought I would die there. I almost did." Riley's voice thinned. "Why now? Why come back?" Mara's gaze hardened. "Because the men who sent us to Isla Grey, the ones who wrote us off as acceptable losses, are active again." Riley's stomach tightened like a tightened knot. "And they know you survived," Mara finished. Riley's breathing didn't change, but something inside her did. "They're going to come for you," Mara said. "Not to kill you, to silence what you remember." Riley shook her head slowly. "I don't remember anything." Mara lifted her chin. "Yes," she said, "you do. You remember the water. You remember the distress beacon. You remember who wasn't on the boat when it went down." Riley felt the memory hit her like a body breaking the surface of cold ocean. The commanding officer. The one who launched the mission. The one who abandoned them. The one whose hands were never wet. Riley met Mara's eyes. "He's alive." Mara nodded once. "And he's here, in this city, moving money, weapons, personnel, preparing for something global, not local." Riley took one step back. Not retreat. Space to think. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about trauma. This was about unfinished ghosts. And ghosts never stay buried. Mara's voice softened, not gentle, just less sharp. "You have every right to walk away, Riley. You earned peace. You bled for it. You died for it. If you want a quiet life, take it." Riley looked at the ocean. The waves moved steady, endless, unconcerned. The shoreline had no memory of footsteps. Water did not record names. But Leo's face rose in her mind. And the way he breathed for the first time without fear. And Hale's words. And the way her own voice had said, "I don't know who I am without purpose." She turned back to Mara. "What do you need?" Mara did not smile. But something in her eyes loosened. A tracker, a ghost, someone who knows how to vanish, someone who knows how to hold their breath when the world tries to drown them. Riley nodded once. I can do that. Mara stepped closer until they were only inches apart, close enough for breath to be shared. Then we leave quietly, Mara said. No calls, no goodbyes. The moment they know we're moving is the moment we lose our lead. Riley squared her jaw. Leo, she murmured. Mara blinked slowly. The boy. He's learning, Riley said. He needs to know how to protect himself. You can leave him instructions, Mara said. But if you stay for him, you die for nothing. Riley closed her eyes. Not in fear. In choice. She opened them again, gaze clear. No, she whispered, not for nothing, for meaning. She stepped back from Mara and pulled her phone out. Not to call. To type. A message to Leo. I'll be gone for a while, remember the breathing, and trust yourself. She hesitated, then added. You're stronger than you know. She sent it. No explanation. No goodbye. Goodbyes make the leaving harder. She pocketed her phone, turned back toward Mara. Her breathing was deep. Steady. Unbroken. Mara nodded once. Welcome back, Riley. Riley didn't respond with words. She only inhaled slow. Held. And exhaled. Because she knew. The ocean doesn't erase. It waits. How many times had she left without saying goodbye? Riley didn't count anymore. The city lights flickered behind her as she followed Mara down the pier. The boards creaked softly beneath their steps, waves lapping at the pilings below. Dawn was still a quiet outline on the horizon, the kind of early morning where the world was suspended between sleep and waking, the kind of morning where decisions settled into the bones, becoming part of who someone was. Mara didn't speak, and Riley didn't ask questions yet. They moved in silence, the type of silence that belonged to people who had been trained to speak only when necessary. Every footfall was deliberate, every breath controlled, two shadows moving within a world unaware of its own fragility. At the end of the pier, behind a line of abandoned fishing sheds, a motorcycle waited, matte black, dusty, silent, no markings, no plates. Prepared. Hidden. Meant for escape. Mara swung a leg over and handed Riley a spare helmet. Riley didn't put it on right away. She studied the street instead, the rooftops, the corners where reflections might betray a watcher. She wasn't being hunted, not yet, but she could feel the air tightening. Pressure always came before the strike. You still read the world like it's a battlefield, Mara said finally, voice quiet, almost tired. It is, Riley replied. Mara's eyes softened, not in pity but in recognition. It doesn't have to be, she said. Riley slipped the helmet over her head. Maybe, she said, but right now it is. The engine rumbled low when Mara turned the ignition. Not loud, not flashy, just power waiting to move. Riley settled behind her, hands resting lightly at Mara's waist, not holding on, just stabilizing. Trust without touch. They pulled away from the pier, tires whispering against the wet pavement. The city passed in blurs of color, neon signs flickering. Early morning workers unlocking storefronts. Fishermen unloading crates of iced blue fish. Life breathing without knowing what moved inside it. Riley watched everything. Mara watched nothing. Or maybe Mara watched everything at once. They took back streets, service roads, routes only someone who had learned to disappear would know. No cameras, no choke points, no light. They didn't speak until they were halfway up the cliffs overlooking the ocean highway, parked in a dirt turnout surrounded by tall grass and rusted road signs. The world below was waking now. Cars beginning to dot the coastal highway. The sky warming. Birds calling. Normal. Too normal. Riley removed her helmet. Her hair fell forward in damp strands over her face. She didn't push them away. She needed a moment to let her pulse find its baseline. Mara didn't look at her. She stared out at the horizon instead. "He set up shop inland," she said. "Private security, black budget, front company on paper, weapons training, recruitment pipeline. He's building something, Riley." Riley didn't speak. Mara continued. "You know the type. Disillusioned vets, outsourced militias, people who never reintegrated and are desperate to feel useful again. He's offering them purpose." Riley's jaw tightened. Purpose was the most dangerous weapon in the world. Mara's voice sharpened. "He's not building soldiers. He's building believers." Riley closed her eyes for a moment. The wind lifted her hair. Salt touched her lips. She didn't speak, not until the memory formed fully in her mind. The mission. The storm. The sinking. The hand slipping from hers. The one she couldn't save. But not by failure. By abandonment. "He left us," Riley said quietly. Mara didn't nod. Didn't confirm. She didn't need to. Riley already knew. "He didn't miscalculate," she continued, voice low. "He didn't panic. He made a decision. He chose who lived and who drowned." Mara's voice was barely above a whisper. "And now he's choosing again." Riley opened her eyes. "What does he want?" Mara finally turned to her. The morning sun hit her face, catching the faint scars along her cheekbones, lines of past violence, healed but present. "To rewrite the world," she said, "or burn it. I don't know if he sees the difference anymore." Riley let the wind fill the space between them. "I need proof," she said. Mara exhaled slow. "I have it." She reached into her jacket, pulling out a small hard drive, thumb-sized, silver, unmarked. Riley stared at it. "What's on it?" Mara placed it in her palm. Coordinates, names, transfers, recruitment logs, surveillance footage. Riley didn't close her fingers around it. Mara watched her carefully. "You're waiting for the part that hurts," Mara said softly. Riley didn't deny it. Mara's voice was quiet but steady. "He has your name." Riley's fingers tightened around the drive, knuckles whitening. "And he has Leo's." Riley's breath left her chest like something punched it out. Her pulse went sharp. Cold. Precise. Leo wasn't just a boy anymore. He was a tether. A reason. A liability. Riley forced her breathing to slow. "He watched the alley," Mara said. "Not the fight. You. He was tracking you before that night. The attackers were opportunistic, but he was watching how you responded. He wanted to see whether the training was still there." Riley's voice came out quiet but steady. "He wanted to see if I was still useful." Mara nodded. Riley's jaw clenched. "And now he knows." "Yes," Mara said, "now he knows." Riley looked out at the water. The waves looked calm from up here, but she had lived inside them long enough to know that calm water could drown a person faster than a storm. She said nothing for a long time. Mara didn't interrupt. Finally, Riley spoke. "We go to Leo." Mara didn't move, but something in her expression flickered. "He's safer if you disappear," Mara said. "No," Riley replied. "He's safer if I teach him how to breathe under pressure, if I teach him how to disappear without losing himself, if I teach him how to survive being hunted." Mara studied her. "You're sure?" Riley didn't blink. "He found me, he can find Leo. Distance won't stop him, but preparation might." Mara didn't argue. She handed Riley her helmet back. They rode fast. Down the cliffs. Past the shoreline. Through sleeping streets waking slowly. When they reached Riley's block, she got off the motorcycle before it stopped rolling. She didn't rush, but her feet were already moving. She took the stairs 2 at a time. Second floor. Third door. Left side. She knocked once. The door opened almost immediately. Leo stood there, eyes tired, hair messy, breath uneven. "You're leaving," he said. Not a question. Riley swallowed. "I came back first." Leo stared at her for a long time. "You're scared," he said quietly. Riley's breath stopped. Not because he was wrong, but because he was the first person who had seen it. She knelt down so they were eye level. Her voice was steady. "Fear is not the enemy," she said. "It's the signal. It tells you what matters." Leo nodded slowly. "Am I something that matters?" he asked. Riley closed her eyes. When she opened them, there was no distance in them anymore. "Yes," she said. He didn't cry. He didn't tremble. He just breathed. Slow. Steady. Like she taught him. Mara waited at the bottom of the stairs. Riley walked down slowly. Leo followed. No hesitation. No questions. Only trust. When they reached Mara, the older woman studied him. "You sure about this?" she asked Riley one last time. Riley didn't look away from Leo. "He deserves the choice," she said. "No one gave me mine." Mara nodded. Riley placed her hand on Leo's shoulder. "Ready?" she asked. Leo nodded. No fear. Only purpose. And this time, Riley didn't walk away alone. How do you teach someone to disappear without losing themselves? The highway stretched out ahead of them, long and winding along the coastline. The motorcycle engine purred beneath them, steady and low. Leo rode behind Riley now, arms wrapped loosely around her, his breath warm through the fabric of her jacket. Mara led on a second bike, head low, posture tense but controlled. They didn't speak through the ride. Silence was its own kind of communication. They passed the city limits before the sun had fully risen. The ocean slipped behind them. The air grew colder. The traffic thinned until there were no cars at all, just empty road and distant mountains. Riley kept her eyes scanning forward, but she checked the mirrors every few seconds, not for cars but for patterns. Shadows. A vehicle that stayed just a little too long. A drone glinting in the wrong direction. A shape where one shouldn't be. There was nothing yet. But yet was never a comfort. After nearly an hour, Mara slowed and turned onto an unmarked gravel road, dust rising in a soft cloud behind her tires. The bikes rolled to a stop near a weathered barn, long abandoned, wood faded to gray and roof rusted at the edges. No sign of life. No cameras. No footprints. Riley scanned anyway. Mara dismounted and pulled back a loose board on the side of the barn. Behind it was a keypad, old, military issue, with a small faint LED that flickered awake at her touch. Riley felt the weight of the world shift. This place wasn't random. It was remembered. Mara entered a code. The barn door slid inward on silent mechanical hinges. Inside wasn't a barn at all. It was a training facility. Concrete floors, racks of weighted ropes, balance beams, cold steel dip bars, a shallow tank like the kind used in underwater stress tests, drained at the moment but waiting. The ceiling was high with reinforced beams for climbing and traversing. Riley stepped inside like stepping into a memory she hadn't wanted to revisit. Leo stared with wide eyes. "This is where you trained?" he asked. Riley's throat tightened. "Part of it," she answered. Mara didn't correct her. Some truths were already heavy enough without more weight. Leo stepped deeper into the room, slow, reverent, not afraid, just aware. He walked to the balance beam and placed one foot carefully on it. He wobbled immediately. Riley steadied him, not roughly, not quickly, just with one hand on his shoulder. a grounding touch. "This isn't about being strong," she said quietly. "It's about being present." He nodded. Mara tossed Riley a pair of gloves. "You'll run the training," she said. Riley caught them without looking. "What about you?" she asked. Mara moved toward a metal desk near the back wall. "I'll handle surveillance. I want to see how fast they're moving." Riley knew better than to ask who they was. The answer wasn't a name. It was a shadow that followed both of them. She turned to Leo. "Take off your shoes." He hesitated, then obeyed, stepping barefoot onto the cold training floor. Riley gestured to the empty space around them. "First lesson isn't fighting, or running, or hiding." Leo watched her closely. "It's breathing," she said. He nodded. He was ready. But Riley didn't speak yet. She walked to the tank, ran her fingers along the rim. Water training had always been the most feared segment of special operations selection, not because the water was dangerous, but because the mind was. She turned back to Leo. "Fear isn't the enemy," she said. "Losing your breath is." Leo blinked. "Losing your breath." Riley nodded. "When we panic, we breathe fast, shallow, chaotic. It makes our brain believe we're dying, so our body follows. But if you learn to breathe slower than your fear, you can make choices even when the world is drowning you." Leo swallowed. Riley stepped closer. "Close your eyes." He did. "Put your hand here," she said, placing his palm on his chest. He felt the rhythm of his heartbeat. "Now inhale slow. Don't lift your shoulders, expand from the ribs." He tried. At first his breath stuttered. "That's okay," she said softly. "Do it again." He inhaled again, smoother. She nodded. "Good, hold 1, 2, 3. Silence. Exhale longer than you inhaled." He did. The tension in his shoulders dropped. Mara, typing at the surveillance console, watched, but didn't interrupt. Leo's breathing steadied. His heart slowed, his body relaxed. But Riley's didn't. Not yet. Her mind was already running ahead. Her thoughts drifted back to Isla Grey. The storm. The flashing red flare. The water boiling around them. The screaming. The silence when the screaming stopped. She felt her chest tighten. Her breath hitch. She forced herself to inhale. Slow. And exhale. Her control returned. Leo opened his eyes. "How long will it take to learn?" he asked. Riley met his gaze. "A lifetime," she said, "but a single moment to need it." Leo nodded. "Not with fear. With understanding." Riley stepped back and motioned toward the beam. Again. He climbed up. This time he didn't fall. Hours passed. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the old barn wood, dust floating like slow-moving ash in the air. Leo's shirt clung to his back with sweat. His feet were raw. His breathing was controlled. Riley didn't praise him. She didn't need to. His progress lived in his posture. Mara finally stepped away from the console, expression grave. "They know." Riley looked at her steadily. "How close?" Mara's jaw tightened. "Close enough." Riley didn't blink. "How many?" 3 vehicles, 2 drones. They're not approaching fast. They're observing. He wants to see what you choose." Riley's stomach didn't drop. It solidified. "He wants me to run," she said. Mara nodded. "And running would tell him you still fear him." Riley didn't look away. "And staying tells him I don't." Mara's voice was barely a whisper. "Do you?" Riley didn't speak. Not because she didn't know, but because the answer was yes or no. Fear wasn't the enemy. Fear was the compass. Leo wiped his forehead, breath steady. "Are they coming for us?" he asked. Riley turned to him, kneeling until they were eye level again. "Yes," she said. His throat moved in a small swallow. "But I meant what I said," she continued. "You're stronger than you know, and fear won't make you weak, it will make you ready." He didn't look away from her eyes. He didn't ask if he would be safe. He asked, "What do I do?" Riley felt something inside her settle. "You breathe," she said. "You stay aware, and you move when I move." Leo nodded once. Mara handed Riley a small comm earpiece. "Once we engage," Mara said, "there's no going back, no peace, no anonymity. You'll be in this again." Riley fitted the earpiece in place. She stood. Her posture changed. No hesitation. No uncertainty. The quiet part of her, the one that thought peace was possible, stepped back. The soldier stepped forward. "We move," Riley said. And in that moment, she wasn't returning to who she had been. She was becoming someone new. Someone who chose the fight. Not because she wanted violence, but because she refused to leave others unguarded in the dark. The barn door opened with a heavy mechanical groan. Outside, the world was bright. Silent. Waiting. Riley stepped out first. Her breathing was slow. Steady. Controlled. Unbreakable. What happens in the space between seeing danger and stepping toward it? Riley felt the gravel shift beneath her boots as she walked out into the open. The barn behind her stood silent, its old wood and rusted tin roof blending into the dry landscape around it. The morning was bright now, sun lifting above the ridgeline, turning everything gold except for the shadows waiting just beyond the tree line. Shadows that moved. 3 vehicles, matte black, no markings. The engines were quiet, but Riley could hear them. She didn't have to strain. When your life has depended on identifying sound before sight, your hearing becomes a map. Leo stood just behind her right shoulder, close enough to follow, far enough not to cling. Mara moved to Riley's left, one step back, like they had done hundreds of times before in another life. Muscle memory had a way of resurrecting itself, even after being buried. No one spoke. The first vehicle door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, clean-shaven, wearing civilian clothes that still somehow felt like a uniform. His posture was too precise. His hands were relaxed, but only in the way of someone who had trained themselves to relax. His smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes. Riley knew him instantly. Her chest tightened, but her breath didn't. Commander Hale had told her once, "There are moments that split your life cleanly in two." This was one of them. Captain Raith, the officer who had led their unit at Isla Grey. The officer who was supposed to evacuate them. The officer who had left them to drown. He walked toward them slowly, like he was approaching an old friend. When he stopped, the sunlight fell over half his face, leaving the other in shadow. "Riley." He spoke her name softly, like it was something sacred. She didn't respond. Mara didn't move. Leo's breath hitched, but only once. Then he controlled it. Riley didn't look at him, but she felt that. She felt him learning. Raith clasped his hands lightly behind his back. "I wondered how long it would take before you resurfaced," he said. "I have to say I'm impressed. Most people don't come back from the kind of breaking you walked through." Riley's jaw tensed. She didn't question how he found her. She didn't ask why. She only asked the one thing that mattered. "Why didn't you save them?" Raith tilted his head, like the question genuinely intrigued him. "I did," he said softly. "I saved the ones who were still useful." Leo stiffened. Riley didn't react, not outwardly. Raith continued. "The mission was compromised long before the storm. There were leaks, eyes everywhere. The only way to preserve the program was to let the operation die." He paused. "You were never meant to survive." Mara's fingers curled slightly, just enough for Riley to notice. Raith's gaze flicked toward her. "Ah, yes, you were a complication too, but complications can become assets if treated correctly." Riley's voice remained steady. "You drowned them." Raith didn't deny it. "You remember correctly." The words landed heavy, not shouted, not dramatic, just unbearably calm. Riley's breathing didn't change. Raith took one slow step closer. "You were always different," he said. "Even then, you held your breath until the world gave in. You survived by stillness. You chose control over panic, and that," he gestured lightly to her chest, "is why you're still alive." Mara's voice cut through the air, sharp and low. "What do you want, Raith?" He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on Riley. "I want you to come back." Riley didn't move. Leo swallowed hard. Mara exhaled through her teeth. "You want her to help you build an army," Mara said. "Broken men made obedient by purpose. You want a weapon, not a soldier." Raith finally turned to her. "A weapon that chooses itself is the most powerful kind," he replied. Riley didn't speak. Not because she didn't understand, but because she understood too well. Raith gestured toward Leo now, slowly, not threatening, just observant. "And this one," he said softly, "is already searching for identity, purpose, belonging. He could be taught correctly. He could be more." Leo flinched, but just barely. Riley stepped half in front of him. Not defensive. Claiming. Raith watched her movement with interest. "Yes," he murmured, "just like that, you protect, you anchor, you give meaning. That's why you are valuable." Riley's voice came like a blade sliding from its sheath. "No." Raith blinked. It was not a loud word. It didn't need to be. "You don't get to define purpose," she said. "Not for me, not for him, not for anyone." Raith's expression didn't darken, it didn't harden, it simply changed. The mask slipped just slightly. "Then you've already chosen a side," he said. Riley didn't blink. "I chose the moment you left us in the dark." Mara's stance shifted, ready. Leo's breathing slowed. Raith nodded once. Not angry. Not threatened. Just acknowledging. "Well," he said softly, "then this will be unpleasant." He raised his hand. Not in a weapon signal. In a command. The other vehicles opened. 4 men stepped out. Not thugs. Not street attackers. Trained. Disciplined. Silent. Riley didn't step back. Mara moved to her left. Leo stayed behind her, breathing evenly, chest lifting slowly, just like she taught him. Raith gave Riley one last look. "You can still walk away." Riley's voice was calm, steadier than the air around them. "No," she said, "you can." She turned slightly, only enough so Leo could hear her without looking away from the threat. "Remember what I told you." Leo nodded. He whispered, "Breathe slower than the fear." Raith's eyes flickered. Riley didn't smile, but something in her gaze sharpened like steel catching sun. The first strike came from the right. Riley moved before thought. Her body became motion, fluid, efficient, controlled. One breath. She stepped inside the attacker's reach, using momentum, not strength. Her forearm caught his strike, redirecting it downward. A pivot of the hip, a sharp exhale. His balance broke. He hit the ground. Mara took the second attacker, movements precise and brutal, no wasted effort. A knee to the sternum, an elbow to the jaw, silence, not struggle. The third went for Leo. Riley didn't move to intercept. She didn't need to. Leo inhaled. Slow. Held. And stepped aside at the exact moment the man lunged. The attacker stumbled. Leo brought his shoulder down, not perfectly, not powerfully, but enough to disrupt the man's center of gravity. It wasn't a victory, but it was survival. And that was the point. Riley met the fourth attacker herself, hands up, not striking, redirecting force without escalation. She didn't want to kill. Killing would make this war immediate, but she made sure the message was clear. She was not prey. She was not broken. She was choosing. The fight ended as quickly as it began. None of the attackers were permanently harmed, but they were all on the ground, breathing hard. Raith watched, expression unreadable. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. "That's a shame," he said quietly. "You would have changed the world with me." Riley's voice was soft. "No," she replied, "I will change it in spite of you." Raith stepped back toward the vehicles. "This isn't over." Riley didn't answer. He signaled the retreat with 2 fingers. The vehicles reversed slowly. No rush. No panic. Just patience. War wasn't beginning here. War was being written. When the last engine sound faded into the distance, Leo exhaled shakily. Riley placed a hand on his shoulder, not to steady him, to acknowledge him. "You moved," she said. He nodded. "I remembered." Mara crossed her arms. "He won't stop." Riley's eyes stayed on the empty road where Raith had gone. "I know." Leo looked between them. "What do we do now?" Riley's breath was deep. Steady. Controlled. "We don't run," she said. "We prepare." What does preparing actually mean? Most people think preparation is about weapons, strategy, or muscle, but true preparation begins in silence, in the space between fear and choice, in the breath before movement. The barn was quiet again, dust drifting lazily in the beams of soft afternoon light. The air smelled faintly of old rope and dried wood. Riley stood near the drain training tank, her hands resting lightly against the cool metal rim. Leo sat cross-legged on the floor, breathing evenly, watching her. Mara watched from near the entrance, leaning against a stack of crates as if she was here and also somewhere else entirely. Her stillness was different than Riley's. Riley's stillness came from discipline. Mara came from exhaustion that had learned to move. No one spoke at first. Silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary. Finally, Riley turned to Leo. "Stand," she said. He did. Not clumsy, not hesitant, just awake. Mara lifted her chin slightly. She noticed it too. Riley walked to the center of the open floor and motioned him forward. "How do you feel?" she asked. Leo breathed once before answering. "Not scared," he said. Then he corrected himself. "Or scared but not drowning in it." Riley nodded. "That's enough," she said. Because courage was never the absence of fear, just the decision that fear would not govern the body. She moved into stance, loose, neutral, not challenging, just present. "Again," she said. Leo stepped in not to attack but to learn, to understand distance, to feel space. Riley let him move, let him fail, let him adjust. She didn't rush him, she didn't instruct, she let the body teach itself. His breath remained steady. His eyes stayed open. His feet learned where to anchor. Mara watched for a while longer, then turned away, moving to the surveillance desk again. She wasn't avoiding them. She was guarding them. The world was still turning outside, and Raith did not retreat without intention. After some time, Leo faltered, not in form but in mind. His gaze drifted, his breath shortened. The memory returned, the alley, the hands at his throat, the moment he believed he would vanish. Riley saw it instantly. "Stop," she said, stepping forward, fingers resting gently on his shoulder. "Not like this. Don't fight the memory. Let it speak." Leo's throat worked. "It felt like I disappeared," he whispered. "Like I stopped existing. I was there, but I was. Riley didn't look away. I know, she said. Leo blinked up at her. You do? Riley didn't nod, didn't explain. She simply placed his hand over his own chest again. Feel your heartbeat, she said. That's proof you are here. He closed his eyes. The room breathed with him. Mara didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Some healing wasn't meant to be witnessed, only understood. Leo's breathing returned to slow, steady rhythm. Riley let her hand fall. Again, she said softly. And he moved. Not perfectly, but with presence. Evening pulled shadows long across the barn floor when Mara finally spoke again. They're regrouping, she said, eyes scanning the surveillance feed. Not attacking, watching, waiting for your next move. Riley expected that. Raith never acted impulsively. Every action was a seed planted for a larger consequence. He wants us to come to him, Riley said. Mara didn't turn. Yes. Leo looked between them. Then do we go after him? Riley didn't answer immediately. She walked to the large open door of the barn and leaned against the frame, looking out at the fatting sky. The mountains were dark silhouettes now, the horizon glowing dim gold. Raith represented the past. Raith represented betrayal. Raith represented the version of Riley that survived destruction by becoming silent. To go to him would be to step back into that violence. To stay would be to invite it to come to her. But something had shifted. Leo. Mara. The breath lesson. The choice. She wasn't returning to war. She was returning to herself. Slowly she turned back. We're not chasing him, she said. We're not running either. Mara looked up now. So what are we doing? Riley walked to Leo and placed a hand lightly at the center of his back, steady, grounding. We're building something he can't break, she said. Leo looked up at her, confusion flickering into understanding. A place to train, Riley said. Not soldiers, survivors, the kind who don't become weapons, the kind who don't need fear to define them. Mara's expression shifted, something fragile flickering behind her eyes. Hope, she said quietly. Riley didn't smile, but her voice warmed by a fraction. Strength without cruelty, she said. Control without obedience. Purpose without violence. Leo inhaled. The last light of the day caught his face. Will he come again? He asked. Yes, Riley said. Leo nodded. Then I'll be ready. Not bravado. Not pride. Just clarity. Riley recognized it. It was the same clarity she had once carried into the water. But now it was gentler. Mara stepped closer, arms loose at her sides. If we do this, she said quietly, we won't be ghosts anymore. Riley looked at her. No, she said, we'll be alive. Mara exhaled, long, slow, almost relieved. The night fully arrived. Stars blinked awake. The barn felt warmer now, not physically, but in the way spaces change when purpose enters them. Riley sat on the floor, back resting against the wall, legs stretched out in front of her. Leo settled near her, leaning his shoulder lightly against hers. Mara sat on her other side, knees drawn loosely up. The three of them formed a quiet line of silhouettes, against the faint glow of moonlight through the boards. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Breathing filled the room like quiet waves. Slow, steady, alive. And in that stillness, Riley finally allowed herself to feel something she had not felt in years. Not victory, not safety, but presence. For the first time, she was not surviving the past. She was living the now. Her voice came softly, more thought than sound. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. Leo lifted his head, listening. Riley finished. It simply breathes. And the night held them gently, not as soldiers, not as ghosts, but as people learning how to exist without drowning.